I don't know what's more confusing, learning astrology or just being a human. Moonday Musings is here to help with that. A weekly, no bullshit guide for the upcoming cosmic forecast and how you can actually use this in your real life. Hello, neighbor. Happy Monday. Happy Moonday. Welcome back to Moonday Musings. It's been a minute, hasn't it? I'm not here to pretend like it hasn't. That's for sure. Wow. 2026. Let's wrap it up. Just kidding. But first quarter of 2026, whoa. I think I can speak for many of us when I say, whoa. Lots happening around here. On the front end, here in our witchy little neighborhood, things have been a little quiet, as I'm sure you've noticed. I'm here. I'm okay. And in the back end, things have been busy and abuzz. Lots of moving parts and pieces. So today's episode is definitely going to have some updates, special little announcement, and also, of course, the astrology for the month ahead. If you are with me in that witch school, or if you follow me on YouTube, which please do, if you don't already, make sure you like and subscribe. You've been able to hear some of my progress, some of my checkpoints recently, but things have been very, very quiet here on the podcast. In fact, the last time that we spoke with each other was the end of February. And at that time, as I time travel back in my mind, back to the end of February, I do want you to know I had full intention of showing up every week after that. And that is just not the way the cookie crumbled, is it? So we've chit-chatted a little bit on the podcast. I've let you know that I have been called to expanding and exploring my creativity as a content creator. And primarily what we've talked about here on the podcast was my long-form written content as far as like blogging, for example, which you can find a blog post for today's episode. I also, kind of in the wake of that, or should I say, as that started to blossom, more started unfolding, more began blooming for me. This eclipse season, whoa, really knock you in the dirt one while also kind of blowing the top off of your mind. Big illumination, really, really big illumination for me. And something that I've been wanting to do more and more, well, hold on, strike that, reverse it, Willy Wonka. Something I've always wanted to do is more of a vlog style of content. I actually really like creating content. I am naturally an overachiever, and I can definitely overload my plate, especially with things that I really love. Yeah, I have a long-standing history of overbearing myself, promising too much, biting off way more than I can chew, binging, in literal and metaphorical senses of the term. And even though I love content creation, what I tend to do, and one of the patterns that I have, is as soon as I find something that I like, and then I get this wonderful positive response from the neighborhood, the audience, I tend to just run 200 miles per hour in that direction. And all the while not taking into consideration many, many, many other factors. So what's kind of happened over these last it's going to be 5 years since that witch podcast launched this year. Whoa. Over the last 5 years, what's happened is I began showing up on this podcast with a lot of inspired action to teach about witchcraft and astrology. And I received such beautiful, overwhelming, positive response for that content that I just full steam ahead charged that. And I did it so much so that I left little to no room for anything else. And it took me until this past eclipse season to realize that when I'm doing that, I'm blocking out things I'm very, very afraid of, risks that I'm afraid of, possibilities I'm afraid of. And because I would get such great positive feedback about what I was already doing, I would go so hard in that direction that I eventually started avoiding trying anything else, even if I really wanted to, even if I think I could be really good at it, because I'm afraid of the alternative. Not going to be liked, going to be disapproved of, rejected, etc., etc. All the woes and shadows and fears of being a Leo rising, of course. In the midst of this eclipse season, I had that big revelation. Wow, I have been keeping myself from trying things and doing things that I think I would really enjoy. And I might be a great instructor, not to toot my own horn, in astrology and witchcraft, but when I use it relentlessly, my astrology and witchcraft teacher archetype, when I use that as relentless armor to keep out all of the what ifs, I end up burning out my inner teacher too. I burn out my inner teacher, and then I definitely dim and suppress my inner creative. And I start moving at things like a robot, honestly. And you can thank the Capricorn stellium for that. Sometimes you just don't realize all of a sudden you're acting like a machine. So something I had to do, something I realized was that the only way to start creating room for other types of creativity, for other types of content, is to create room for it, which means I have to turn down or dial back some of my other content style. Again, because I fill my plate, because I overload my plate with this one type of positioning, this one type of content, there's physically not enough room in the day, in the week, in the month, and now in the years to do anything else. And in order to have any extra room on that plate to do anything else, I have to take shit off of that plate. And here's the real kicker. That's almost as scary, if not scarier, than trying out something new. And I didn't realize that. I knew I was afraid to try some new things. I knew I was afraid to try out a new style, to show you some other parts of myself that maybe you get little glimmers of in my podcast and on my videos and on social media. But it's very, very controlled, very refined, and very restricted. Of course, I was afraid to start, the extra visibility, you seeing me that way, and what will happen? Will you like it? Will you not like it? What I didn't foresee was, oh my God, not only will you not like those parts of me, not only what if you don't like this style of content on me, what if you get mad at me for dialing back the content style that you have grown to love and appreciate so much and look forward to? Here's the deal, y'all. I don't take your loyalty lightly at all. I carry that around with such sacred reverence. You mean so much to me, neighbor. This neighborhood means the world to me. I really do care what you think. That's the truth. I respect how you feel. And sometimes I get really, really afraid of letting you down. And so what I do is I force myself to show up when I don't want to. Or I force myself into a pigeonhole. And shocker, what ends up coming out the other side is a very, very, very dimmed, tired, burnt out version of myself. So March, for me, turned out to be this time of great reflection and exploration. That last time that we spoke with each other at the end of February in our reflection and gratitude episode, it was like I opened this can of worms for myself. And the reflections just kept coming and coming and coming. And so what I did this month was I let myself ponder and reflect and think, but I also let myself experiment and try and dabble. And I can definitely tell you that I'm feeling really excited. I'm excited about where I'm going, and I hope that you will be as well. One of the things that I can tell you now in this great, vast path of the unknown ahead of me, something I do know is that in order to put out more content of other styles and to explore sharing different versions of myself with you, that means that I need to be realistic about how often I produce the podcast. For basically as long as the podcast has been around, I have committed myself to a minimum of 2 episodes a week on average. There was even a time we were at 3 episodes a week for a season or 2, which, whoa. And I don't know exactly what the podcast schedule will look like in the future. I can tell you that right now what I know is I don't want Moonday Musings to go anywhere. And I also know that it can't be every week anymore either. I also know that our other regular episode of That Witch podcast, I can't do that every week either as well. anywhere from 6 to 10 podcast episodes a month is too much. It's too much. It's just the truth. One of the biggest revelations that I was able to have was I kept holding myself to the same standard that of a lot of other podcasters. Well, they can churn out these episodes. They can churn out these episodes every week, and they're a lot longer, and they even have better production and value and all this stuff because they can go record in like a professional studio and all, Well, here's the thing. I am not like a lot of other podcasters. I think that there's a chance that could be something that you actually like about me and like about That Witch podcast. The truth is that I love podcasting. I'm always going to be a podcaster at heart, but it's not all that I am. I never wanted it to be all that I am. So here's what we're going to do for now. We will be meeting on Moonday Musings at the beginning of the month, every month. I love the podcast, or I do love the podcast. I love the monthly cosmic overview that we do with each other. And I think that it's a really, really excellent learning opportunity. I think that you get a lot of value out of it. I get a lot of value out of it. We're going to meet the first Monday of the month every month anyways, no matter what. I also would like to release our last Moonday of the month episode. Lots of you, and I mean lots of you, way more than I ever expected when we very, very first started doing the reflection and gratitude episode. I honestly thought it was going to be somewhat of a flop, not a full flop, but I thought it was going to be kind of a niche value. I thought that some specific people were going to really like it. And that most people were honestly going to skip it. That was what I predicted. And I did it anyways because I was like, it's important. That's why we're going to do it. Instead of just showing up and just spouting off astrology at you every single week, like before we start a new month, we need to look back. We need to take a break. We need to pause, and we need to look back, and we need to reflect, and we need to intentionally sift through our experience this last month and take what gratitude we get from that and carry that forward into the next month. And what ended up happening was the end of the month reflection and gratitude episode is actually now one of the most listened to and downloaded episodes of That Witch podcast every single month. Those 2 Moonday episodes, by far, are 2 of our highest performing episodes of the month, every single month, no matter what, without fail. And so we're going to keep those on schedule, no matter what, for the time being. And then I also would like to release another episode every month with you. Sometimes this is going to be with a wonderful guest. Sometimes this is going to be a discussion topic. And sometimes it's going to be the educational content that you've known to, or that you've come to know and love. And in the meantime, there will still be lots of other little places to keep up with me, to connect with me, and to consume content from me. This is an excellent time to go subscribe to YouTube if you didn't already, when I mentioned it at the beginning. I will be releasing most of my vlogging content on YouTube, and we'll do little snippets of that on short form social media like TikTok and like Instagram. As always, since the very beginning of this show, something I've always talked about is my up and down ongoing relationship with social media, which I think that lots of us can relate to that, especially as millennials who grew up with, and I would think Gen Z as well, but I'm going to speak to the millennials here for a second. We grew up first without the existence of social media, and then it was introduced to us for the first time ever at a very unique age, so that we had this solid memory of a time prior to it existing, and then we now have everything after the fact. And as social media grew and grew in trend and popularity, then lots of other age groups and demographics began joining as well. And this isn't like a competition thing, like, you know, we were the first ones. It's not about that. But millennial generation, we are in a unique position here. And I do believe it is a huge, huge reason for this very interesting push-pull relationship that we have as a generation with social media. There's a reason I always try to be transparent about that with all of you, because I know how many of you relate to that with me. Social media can be this incredible tool of connection and learning, and it's sucking and draining my soul from my very body. So I'm going to continue allowing myself to explore and experiment, evaluate and reevaluate my ongoing organic relationship with short form social media. I can tell you that at heart, who I am through and through is a long form content creator. It's why I love podcasting. It's why I love blogging. And it is why I have always wanted to enter into the vlogging world. It's just that the vlogging world, I get nervous. I get so nervous. It's so much more personal, it's so much more personal. If I show up on the podcast or YouTube and I'm teaching you about witchcraft or I'm teaching you about astrology and you disagree with those subjects or you don't like how I teach it or, whatever, at the end of the day, who is it to me? Did I invent astrology? Did I invent witchcraft? No. But if I vlog, if I turn parts of my personal life, personal interests, personal traits into content and share that with you, and then you don't like that, scary vulnerability alert. Scary. And I will say scary, but worth it. At least that's the belief I'm going to anchor into now is scary, but worth it. So I am not going to say, hey, I'm sorry that I wasn't here on the podcast for the last month. I'm not sorry in the fact or in the way that, I'm not doing anything wrong when I take a step back, when I reevaluate and when I explore. And I do want to say that once again, I don't take your loyalty lightly. And I love that you have come to depend on us getting together on Monday mornings. And there's that freaked out, sentimental part of me that's like, what will happen if we don't meet with each other every single Monday? And I'm going to allow the inner critic voice to take a side seat, fade a little bit more into the background, and I'm going to very intentionally turn up the volume on the voices of my cheerleaders and my supporters. And every single one of you knows exactly who you are. So, and truly, thank you, because I don't know if I could do it without you. So, we will not be meeting together every single Monday. However, we will meet the first Moonday of the month, and we will meet together the last Moonday of the month. And then you can look forward to another episode of that witch podcast in between. And to keep up with anything else that I'm doing, that I'm releasing, make sure you're subscribed to my YouTube channel. Make sure you're following on social. And of course, make sure that you are subscribed to my email newsletter as well. I appreciate all your time and yes, your support, but I appreciate the fact that you care enough to hear me out in my little personal revelations like that. So special announcement at the end of the episode. And for now, let's get into the astrology for April 2026. We mainly this month have a lot of planetary movement. So I can tell you, after that whopping doozy of a Mercury retrograde, and that is coming from somebody who really, really tries not to talk shit about Mercury retrograde. But hello, Dolly, was that a fucking Mercury retrograde or what, my friend? I am happy to tell you that this month, Mercury will exit its post-retrograde shadow, and we do not, for this month, for the time being, have another retrograde. So luckily, we don't need to get into anything like that. However, the beginning of this month, April, last week on Wednesday, April 1st, on April Fool's Day, I kind of love that this episode is coming out retroactively, because the full moon, that means, was on April Fool's Day. And this full moon was in Libra. And I would absolutely love to know what that full moon was like for you in your corner of the world on April Fool's Day. April Fool's Day is supposed to be this funny, haha, lighthearted day. And we know every year there's some really solid April Fool's jokes and pranks that are seen all the way through to the other side. We also know that every year there is a slew of April Fool's jokes that do not land well or are in totally poor taste. And I am, at the time of recording this is pre-full moon. You'll be hearing this post-full moon. And I'm very, very intrigued by how this is, what the exact specific events are going to be and how that's going to look for all of us. Now, the full moon was at 12 degrees of Libra, again, exact on April 1st. Full moon in Libra can be this time of embracing our other people outside of us that we love and appreciate. This is a time for embracing diplomacy, taking all into consideration for the good of everyone involved. This is also a time that we embrace and encourage what we love and what attracts us. And we tend to highlight and embrace even further what we find attractive about ourselves. Libra is ruled by Venus, our planet of love and beauty. But when I say love and beauty, I never mean it in these super simple terms like that. I mean these beautiful, multifractal, multidimensional, overarching umbrella of terms that each of them are: love and beauty. And this is why, to me, Venus really is actually a planet of our deepest values. What we value the most, what has the most and carries the most meaning for us. So a full moon in Libra can really, really illuminate and emphasize that which we value most and hold most dearly. And I think that that's going to, or that may have, we'll see if I'm right about this. I'm wondering if that is going to play a part in how we go about performing April Fool's jokes, and also how we receive various April Fool's pranks and hijinks as well. So, very curious. My curiosity hat is definitely turned on. Now, later in the week, this is, let's see here, where are we? Not later in the week, totally sorry. I meant to say later in the month, the following week, this week, in fact, on Thursday, April 9th, we have Mars entering into Aries. So much of March was spent in Piscean energy, We had Pisces season. We had lots of planets in Pisces. And we also, one of those planets was also our pal Mercury, who was retrograde in Pisces throughout the entirety of Pisces season itself. This month, we start moving into Aries energy. And we have two very key players who have already entered Aries that we've already talked about a couple of times on the podcast. We've also talked about this lots of times in that witch school as well, which would be Saturn and Neptune. Saturn and Neptune are both at 0 degrees of Aries. I think Saturn's still at 0 degrees. Saturn could be at 1 degree by the time I'm talking to you about this. And this means that as our other planets begin to enter Aries, they join forces with Saturn and Neptune, and we really get this big amplification of Aries energy. On top of that, Mars is the planet that rules Aries. So when Mars enters the Aries party, we are there. Whoa. Now, I personally believe that Aries itself and Mars as a planet gets a pretty bad rap in general astrology, especially in traditional astrology, if I'm going to just call them like I see them. Mars has been seen as this mindless, destructive, malignant energy for a very, very long time. And as such, so has the emotion of anger and rage. And I believe that this is most represented by how long we have encouraged, if not forced, humans to suppress and stuff down their anger. I believe that suppressed rage and suppressed anger does not stay suppressed forever. And I really believe this about any emotion, to be perfectly honest with you. You could suppress happiness and joy. You could suppress sadness and grief. And I believe that they will find a way to manifest in some way, shape, or form. And that's why with intentional expression, you give direction, you give purpose for that emotion to follow and go to. When we suppress, or we attempt to, it will manifest in a way, usually more often than not, that we do not intend. I am quite certain that this Aries season and other Aries transits in the future, especially because of Saturn and Neptune's influence there right now, I do think we're going to see plenty of the Aries and kind of Martian shadow of blind rage, that mindless destruction I mentioned. For sure we're going to see that. I also believe so deeply in opening ourselves up to the divine purpose of anger and rage. Why were we born with it in the spectrum of emotion? What purpose does that serve? And when we embrace that purpose, what can we do with it? Key, hint, spoiler alert. Really powerful shit. Really, really powerful shit. Okay? So Mars, again, enters Aries on Thursday, April 9th this week, and will be in Aries until it enters Taurus on May 18th next month. So it's going to be an Aries party. I just realized that I forgot to do the astrology deck with everybody throughout this episode. So, sorry, that's, Thank you for learning with me as we build a new habit. I will make sure that those cards are all visible on the blog post for this episode. All right. Now, after Mars joins the Aries party on Thursday, April 9th, we then have Mercury joining the ranks as well. That is going to be Tuesday, April 14th. Mercury will enter Aries. Again, no retrograde. Thank you. And Mercury is going to stay in Aries for a couple of weeks until it enters Taurus on May 2nd. So Mars moving into Aries really drives up the action, okay? Really, really emphasizes the impulse, the taking the first step, initiating, starting over, trying something new, stepping up, standing up for somebody. And Mars, being our planet of action, going into its home sign of Aries, increases action. We'll see an increase in confrontation, likely conflict as well, but this also helps us stand up for ourselves, stand up for others, stand up for what we believe in, if we choose to do so, right? Now, Mercury moving into Aries, we bring that Aries energy, that warrior energy into our communication, our speaking, and our learning centers. So our mentality is much more along the Aries line of thinking. So we might find ourselves thinking about conflict, problem, thinking about our action, our energy, our drives, our motivation. We might also find ourselves learning about, speaking about, sharing about, gossiping about the drama, the conflict. Some of that conflict is going to look like in our inner worlds and kind of those fights that we go to battle over. We're also going to very, very likely see even further centering of our kind of global, our international and our national conversations about war. How great and grand is that? And I do want to emphasize that tapping into our Aries energy can be exactly the thing that we need to speak up and out and against wildly mindless, unnecessary, destructive war as well. Now, after Mercury on Friday, April 17th, we'll have our new moon in Aries. More Aries. The moon is going to move into Aries and open up that new moon portal on the 15th. And then we will hit our exact new moon at 7:51 a.m. Eastern time on the 17th. We'll have that new moon at 27 degrees of Aries, and then the new moon portal will close a little bit later that day when it enters Taurus around 11 a.m. Eastern time, 11 or noon Eastern time. That day is when technically the new moon portal kind of closes, so to speak. Now, new moon in Aries. We've talked a little bit about what Mars in Aries looks like, what Mercury in Aries might be looking like. New moon in Aries is an excellent time for planting some seeds of action. For some of us, that looks like speaking something into existence, making a pledge of sorts. But for others, this looks more like actually taking a step into action. Remember that during an Aries new moon, those seeds of intention that we plant, that we talk about with all new moons, with the Aries new moon portal, that can look like actually taking action, actually saying something, actually doing something, right? Putting our money where our mouth is, so to speak. This is going, okay, so that's going to be on Friday the 17th. Then we will make a big turn on Sunday, April 19th, and the sun will move into Taurus, and Taurus season will begin. And though Taurus season will begin, we will still have lots and lots of this fiery Aries energy going on that is not going to like disappear or go away overnight, especially when Taurus season begins. However, we will see this coming into our body, coming onto and into our earth, lots of grounding, lots of presence in our physical reality. Go touch grass during Taurus season and do this not to necessarily bypass everything that's going on and pretend like it's all just going to magically go away if we all just go outside and hold hands with each other. But what I mean is recharge. Okay, do that Taurus beautiful grounding thing that helps us feel embodied again. That helps us. The beautiful part about Taurus is that it can actually be just as hands-on as Aries. And I don't think that we talk about that commonality very often. Aries being this sign of action, of course, so it is very hands-on. But Taurus, this earthiest of earth signs, in my opinion, is a very hands-on player, and it likes to be involved, and it likes to be a part of, and it likes to be the one building, creating, maintaining. And so this is where we can get really intentional with how we are acting, how we are embodying that inner warrior energy that will still be very, very prevalent during this time. Taurus can cool off the unnecessary or excessive heat that might be burning us out or burning us down a little bit. And Taurus can help us to tend to the roots, tend to the earth, rebirth, grow something again. And I mean that in literal physical ways in your garden, you sweet little green witch, you. And I also mean that in those metaphorical ways as well, too. So these associations that we correspond with Taurus of like being cozy and in bed and indulging in our favorite foods. I want you to look at all of those Taurian qualities as these ways that we nurture ourselves. We make sure that we're filling our cup. We make sure that we're taking care of our physical self. We're still prioritizing our health. We're still prioritizing our bodies. We're still prioritizing the health and bodies of our loved ones and our community that we care about around us. And we can still totally be fueled by that really empowering fire of Aries as well. Taurus season is from Sunday, April 19th until May 20th, when we will begin Gemini season. Speaking of Gemini season, we've got a couple characters moving into Gemini at the end of this month. First, on Friday, April 24th, we have Venus entering Gemini. Venus and Gemini in the house. You know, Venus and Gemini is a favorite placement of mine. I don't personally have it. I know many who do. And it gets Venus and Gemini has some very hilarious, in my opinion, reputations among the astrology community. I like Venus and Gemini because it reminds us that we always get to keep our options open. It invites us to embrace our preferences and be very matter of fact about what turns us on and what turns us off. But it also helps us like not knock it till we try it kind of a thing. Venus and Gemini is very curious, very, very playful, especially in our relationships, for many in the bedroom as well. And this can be a time for kind of getting curious about why you're attracted to what you're attracted to. why you're repulsed by what you're repulsed by, and letting yourself get even more curious about things that you've never tried before, you've never heard about before. And so this can be a time of really great, incredible connection in our relationships if we show up to it with that open-minded curiosity with each other. And then on Saturday, April 25th, the following day, Uranus, our pal Uranus, finally moves into Gemini for realsies this time. Uranus is not going to retrograde back into Taurus again. Uranus's chapter in Taurus, done for the rest of basically most of our lifetimes. It will take another, 84 years to get back to Taurus again. So most of us will not see that time again. Now, when Uranus moves into Gemini, Uranus itself is an air planet. It's kind of like Mercury on crack a little bit. No, but it is this very airy, zippy, lightning striking planet, very associated with our nervous system, and really activates our inner rebel, our inner revolutionary, and on a big collective level, that group revolution, that and this is where we can see some interesting mob mentality. So I think that with Uranus and Gemini, really, truly remaining as open-minded, as open to learning, especially brand spanking new concepts, is very, very, very important. I think that because Gemini can be a little bit matter of fact, because Gemini can see things on both sides pretty easily, there are times when Gemini energy is kind of easy to sway. And that's where we can kind of run into the slippery slope of mob mentality. If we're not keeping that open mind and that open curiosity, okay? As soon as we turn off the curiosity, as soon as we close our mind, we essentially start moving in or thinking in the direction that we are essentially told to. It's important that we still tap into and hold on to that inner rebel, and don't be afraid to be the devil's advocate, and don't be afraid to ask a question, even when everyone else around you seems to be going, yeah, okay, sounds good. Gemini's powers and Uranus's powers can really impact one another in a positive way when we put open mind, learning, and curiosity at the forefront, because that's how we stay open to new ideas, new prospects, new possibilities, and a whole new frontier. Uranus is going to be in Gemini until 2032, 2033. Essentially, it will first enter into Cancer for the very first time in 2032. It will retrograde back into Gemini for a time again, and then officially in 2033, Uranus will move into Cancer at that time. So we will have Uranus and Gemini energy for a while, which tells me that staying open-minded, staying curious, and open to new frontiers, new possibilities, new pathways, progress, is something that is going to be on the table for us for a while now. That is not going away. And over these last 8 years or so that Uranus was in Taurus, and lots of issues, circumstances, and events surrounding how we consume and utilize and honestly waste or reuse our resources, it is going to be time to take that experience and actually put the learning from it into action. Okay. So, fascinating month. Moving into Aries energy. Very, very intrigued by what is to come. And in the spirit of new ideas and inspiration, something that has come to me over these last several weeks is I revisited this time last year. So every spring is always really, really special for me, That Witch Next Door, and particularly That Witch School, because That Witch School's birthday is the spring equinox every year. And every year, something special happens, or I do something special to honor That Witch School. And what I did last year was, in the wake of our school expanding vastly, I knew that it was time for our prices of That Witch School to reflect this huge increase in value. Not just in all of the incredible resources, workshops, tools, right? The actual content that you get in That Witch School, but the community. The community aspect of That Witch School is thriving, flourishing, and it is doing nothing but growing and booming. At this time last year, what I did was, instead of just saying, hey, I'm raising the prices for That Witch School, here it is, I said, hey, I'm raising the prices for That Witch School, but I'm going to do it in a couple of weeks, so that if you sign up now, before that time, I will lock you in at our old rates and our old pricing for life, as long as you stay subscribed to That Witch School. Many of you, of course, because life happens and all, God knows everything that's happened the last year, right? Many of you were not able to take advantage of that sale and that special last year. And truth be told, I didn't have my sights set on revisiting it again. And this year, I was struck with inspiration as I was meeting with the faculty in That Witch School and kind of surveying everything that has transpired for us over this last year. And what I've decided is that to celebrate That Witch School's 4th birthday, 4 years of That Witch School, we are going to run a special rates enrollment sale again. This is going to be for a limited time, my friend, and this is going to run from the Aries new moon to the Scorpio full moon. So from April 17th to May 1st, you will be able to get into That Witch School at our old prices, which is literally 50% off. And all you got to do to lock in that rate is stay subscribed to That Witch School. Now, if you're already in That Witch School, don't fret, because you're not going to miss out on this either. And you will be able to cancel your current subscription and sign back up at the special rate, or you could take advantage and you can upgrade your plan as well on the special rates. I'm going to make sure to post an announcement about this on social media, here on the podcast. This will not be the only time that I talk about it, but you do want to make sure that you're subscribed here or on my email so that you don't miss that window of time. I'll make sure to blast it everywhere, but this is only going to be open for 2 weeks, and then our pricing will go back to the same All right. So if you are interested at all, yay, I can't wait to have you. If you're already in that witch school and you can't wait to take advantage of this, yay, I'm so excited as well. You can always get information in the show notes below for that witch school. I will make sure to send out the link for enrollment once the special gets started. But I wanted to start preparing you now so that you can mark your calendars, so that you can get excited, so that you don't forget and you don't miss it this year, okay? So make sure between April 17th to May 1st, you get into that witch school, my friend, for half the cost. Ugh, I can't wait. Neighbor, you're amazing. Thank you so, so incredibly much for your time today and every day. I can't wait to see where this new journey goes for the both of us. And thanks for being here on the ride with me. Until I see you next time, make sure you're out there staying safe, keep having fun, take care of each other, and of course, stay magical out there. What is that witch school? That witch school is my magical monthly membership that combines safe, welcoming, nurturing community with quality, ethical witchcraft and astrology education. This is like Patreon meets social media, but better. We have monthly calls hosted and guided by myself, as well as multiple instructors within our school. An incredibly beautiful and supportive community of like-minded witches, all built from the neighbors within our neighborhood right here. Plus, there is a just astounding library of resources and content that is always growing, and so much more. You can go back and listen to my episode on the podcast called Welcome to That Witch School 2025 for all kinds of details and information on the membership, the different plans you can subscribe for, pricing, and frequently asked questions, everything that you need to know. Or you can always send me a direct message or email if you ever have any questions. You can get my contact information in the show notes below. And when you're ready to join us, you can go to thatwitchschool.com and find the plan that works for you and join our magical community today.